The highway stretched out like a ribbon of shadows, the only company for miles a scattering of humming streetlights and the occasional billboard flickering in the dark. A sleek navy blue sedan cruised in the right lane, steady at 65. Inside, Dana Whitaker, 43, kept her eyes on the road and her mind half on the briefing she'd just left behind. She wasn't new to long nights or lonely drives. That came with being the freshly appointed director of the Domestic Intelligence Bureau. What she wasn't used to, what still caught her off guard, was the quiet hum of unease that came when power met resistance in the dark. It started with a flicker of red and blue in her rearview mirror. Dana's fingers tightened slightly on the wheel. She glanced at the speedometer. Exactly 65. No swerving. No illegal lane changes. No cause. Still, the cruiser behind her didn't budge. She exhaled, slow and controlled, and signaled right, guiding her car onto the shoulder. Years of experience told her not to panic. She'd worked alongside law enforcement her entire life. Trained with them, led them. She knew the rules, understood the protocols, and tonight she had followed every one of them. But something felt off. The cruiser idled for too long before the driver's side door opened. A tall man stepped out, uniform crisp, movements tight, hand resting near his sidearm. She didn't recognize him. Not that she needed to. Street-level patrol officers didn't usually know who she was either. He moved with too much tension. That kind of posture, rigid shoulders, a deliberate swing of the flashlight, it didn't signal concern. It signaled control. Dana rolled down her window, kept both hands where they could be seen. Her voice, when she spoke, was even and professional. "Evening, officer?" No reply. Just the flashlight aimed at her face. Too long, too close. A beat passed, then another. "License and registration." No greeting, no explanation, just that. She held back a sigh. Something about this wasn't procedural. "May I ask the reason for the stop?" He chewed his gum, gave her a look that didn't blink. License, registration. Her instincts, trained, battle-hardened instincts, whispered one thing. This wasn't routine. She moved slowly, deliberately. "Sir, I'm reaching for my purse on the passenger seat." No response. Just the light in her face and the pressure in her chest. Her wallet came out first, then her ID. Then the slim badge case, flipped open just enough to show the gold lettering and embedded credentials. Domestic Intelligence Bureau. The officer didn't take them, just stared, then said, flat, emotionless, "Step out of the vehicle." Dana blinked. "Excuse me?" He stepped back half an inch, hand a little closer to his holster. "Step out of the car." The calm inside her started to tighten. This wasn't a traffic stop. This was a test, one she'd seen others fail before. Only this time, the target was her, and she wasn't about to fail. Mid-video check-in. If you're still watching, you probably care. Like it, comment your take. Maybe even send it to someone who needs to hear this. The moment Dana's hand moved off the steering wheel, she felt it. Not fear, not yet, but something sharper, like instinct coiled tight in her chest. The officer hadn't budged. His hand hovered too close to the weapon on his hip. That told her everything. This wasn't about a violation. This was about a performance, one where he needed her to play a role she had no intention of stepping into. "Sir, you're outside of protocol," she said evenly, hand still on the door's interior handle. "There's been no probable cause, no stated reason for this stop." He didn't answer, just gripped the handle on his side, white knuckles tight against the paint. "I'm asking you one more time," he snapped. "Step out of the car." The flashlight never moved, still locked on her face, robbing her of detail, depth, even air. Dana had faced cartel bosses, cyber terrorists, rogue agents. But this man, this was different. This was home soil, a patrol stop in the middle of nowhere. And the danger wasn't a criminal, it was the badge itself. "On what grounds?" she asked quietly. He hesitated. That half-second pause, the flicker in his eyes. He didn't have an answer, at least not one he could say out loud. Instead, he took a step closer. The flashlight beam narrowed. She couldn't see his eyes anymore, just the glare and the cold echo of authority gone unchecked. "I don't have to explain myself to you," he said. The way he said it wasn't just dismissive, it was personal. Dana held her ground, not with force, with stillness, with the kind of calm she'd learned after decades in the field. Actually, she said, you do. He didn't like that. The power in his jaw shifted. A flash of something mean surfaced behind his badge. Lady, I don't give a damn who you work for. He slammed his palm down on the roof of her car, a sharp bang that shattered the night silence. Her body jolted, but her hands stayed up, visible. She knew what happened when someone flinched at the wrong time. That was the game, wasn't it? Force a reaction. Justify the outcome. Donna's eyes dropped for a half second, just long enough to catch the nameplate. R. Hollins. She'd remember that. Her fingers itched for her phone, but she didn't move. Any sudden motion could be used against her. She'd read the internal reports, the closed case files. She knew what came next in those. You're making a mistake, she said. He laughed, low and bitter. The mistake was thinking that badge makes you untouchable. Then she saw it. His stance shifted. Weight slid from his heels to the balls of his feet. Right hand twitched near the buckle of his holster. He was considering it. That was when the second set of headlights appeared. Another cruiser. At first, she felt relief. Backup meant oversight. Oversight meant a record. But then she saw the silhouette step out. Broad shoulders. Same posture. Same walk. No nameplate. Not backup. Reinforcement. The second officer approached, eyes cold and flat. He stood beside Hollins like a shadow. No questions. No doubt. No concern. Problem here? The second officer asked. Hollins smirked. Just dealing with a non-compliant driver. Dana didn't speak. Not yet. She weighed every word, every breath. The second man stepped closer. Not a greeting, not a question, just a command. Ma'am, step out of the vehicle. Not Director Whitaker. Not even Miss Whitaker. Just ma'am. She had the rank. She had the credentials. But right now, she was just another target in the dark. And they weren't looking for cooperation. They were looking for submission. Dana didn't move. Not because she was frozen, because she was calculating. The second officer had positioned himself behind Hollins, just out of her peripheral vision. Classic maneuver. Flank the subject. Box them in. Minimize the angles where a camera might catch what shouldn't be seen. They weren't worried about protocol. They were making sure there were no witnesses. She inhaled slowly. No panic in her breath. Only caution. Only the weight of 100 scenarios playing out in her mind. If she refused to get out, they'd escalate. If she complied, she'd be at their mercy. And mercy wasn't in their eyes. The second officer repeated the command. Calm voice. Forced patience. Ma'am, step out of the car now. She spoke with deliberate control. I'm complying. My hand is moving to the door. My other hand will remain visible. Hollins took a small step back, just enough to give her room. She opened the door. The cold night hit her skin like a slap. The silence wasn't peaceful anymore. It was the kind that waited for something to break. She rose slowly, hands still raised. Hollins moved closer, his stance angled, blocking the dash cam. Dana clocked it all. The lighting, the silence, the way the second man mirrored him like muscle memory. Turn around, Hollins ordered. She didn't. You haven't told me why I'm being detained. His eyes narrowed. Suspicious behavior. What behavior? He didn't answer. Instead, he smiled. It wasn't pleasant. Refusing to comply. It was a setup. Refuse and you resist. Comply and you submit. No middle ground. She had seen these games before, in countries Americans claimed to be better than. But this was Iowa. 2 lanes and cornfields. And still, the danger felt the same. Then it happened. He grabbed her wrist. Too hard, too fast. Pain flared through her arm. She didn't pull away violently, just enough to recenter, to hold her ground without triggering a response. Get your hands off me! Her voice cut through the night like glass. But Hollins didn't let go. The second officer stepped forward. We got a problem here? Hollins' grip tightened. I think she's resisting. The phrase turned her stomach. It wasn't just a lie. It was a script. one designed to end badly. The second officer reached for his radio, lips parting to report what so many had called in before. Non-compliant suspect, not citizen, not director, not woman, just a suspect. Then Dana saw it, the snap of the holster strap. Holland's hand dropped to his hip, and the gun came out. She didn't flinch, not outwardly, but the moment stretched, thinned like a tightrope over fire. The barrel hovered inches from her face. Her breath stayed even, her palms open. She didn't move, because movement would be the last thing she ever did. Hollins leaned in, the words low, dark. "Do you feel powerful now?" She stared at him, and what she felt wasn't fear. It was rage. Rage for every name in every report she'd read. Rage for every family who never got the chance to fight back. Her lips parted to speak, to say something that could have been her final words. Then, a voice sharp and sudden cut through the night. "Hey, I'm recording this!" Everything froze. Hollins didn't lower the gun, but he flinched. Dana's eyes flicked to the left. A man stood near the roadside, about 30 yards out, phone held high, screen glowing in the dark, glasses catching the red-blue reflections of squad lights. He wasn't yelling. He wasn't running. But he was watching. And more importantly, he had proof. "You sure you want to do this, officer?" the man called out. The second officer looked at him, then at Hollins, then back. And in that glance, Dana saw it. The power had shifted, just enough to matter, just enough to live through the night. Hollins didn't move at first, not a muscle. The gun stayed raised, though his wrist faltered just enough to show it. Hesitation. The second officer glanced at the man filming, then toward the road, where distant sirens began to echo. Still far off, but unmistakable. Reinforcements were coming, not theirs. Dana's pulse stayed steady, but her mind was moving fast. This was the moment when everything cracked open. The gun hadn't dropped, but the narrative had. They were no longer in control. Hollins' jaw clenched. His eyes cut toward the second officer. "Get him to stop recording." Dana's stomach twisted. She knew what that meant. That wasn't about crowd control. That was about erasing evidence. The second officer moved, slow and purposeful, toward the man with the phone. His hand hovered near his belt. Not a weapon yet, but the suggestion was clear. Dana stepped forward. Her voice sliced the space between them. "Touch him, and I will personally have you charged with obstruction of justice." The second officer paused mid-step. Not because he respected the law, because she'd used it like a weapon. That was the difference. He looked between her and Hollins, waiting for someone to make a move that could be cleaned up later. But the sirens were closer now. Dana could feel it, the shift in weight, the calculations behind their silence. They had done this before. Maybe not to someone like her, but to someone. And without that phone, without those incoming units, it would have been another unrecorded story that no one questioned. Hollins' breathing changed, shallower now. His grip on the gun faltered slightly, no longer pointed square at her, but still drawn, still dangerous. The second officer's radio crackled to life. "Unit 12, status?" No answer. Another pause. Then more sirens. Headlights. Tires grinding against asphalt. 2 patrol cars skidded to a stop behind the first cruiser. Doors opened fast. Officers stepped out, hands on their belts, but not drawn. Not yet. They didn't know what they were walking into. Then one of them saw her. Recognition flashed in his face. "Director Whitaker!" The name split the air like a round fired. Hollins barely reacted, but the second officer did. His spine locked. His mouth opened, but no words came. Dana didn't wait. She dropped her hands, not in surrender, but in reclaiming her ground. She turned toward the newcomers. "I want these 2 officers detained, now." There was no stutter in her voice, no fear, just precision. The second officer took a step back, hands raised slightly. "Hold on!" "Not another word," Dana snapped. "I know exactly what this was, and so does he." She nodded toward the man still holding his phone. The lieutenant, based on the bars on his collar, looked at the scene. At Hollins, still holding the weapon. At the way the cars had been angled. At the lack of explanation in either officer's eyes. He didn't ask for a statement. He didn't need one. "Cuff them both," he said. Hollins exploded. "You've got to be kidding me." But his voice wasn't confident anymore. It was raw, fragile, like someone who had gotten away with everything and had finally realized that was over. Dana didn't blink. "You pulled a gun on the director of the Domestic Intelligence Bureau, Officer Hollins. Let me know if you'd like resisting arrest added to the report." The cuffs clicked behind his back. His face twisted, not in shame, but disbelief, because men like him didn't believe they could fall, not until they did. And tonight, he had. Hollins didn't resist as the cuffs locked around his wrists, but his eyes burned with disbelief, like the moment still hadn't caught up to him. Like he was waiting for someone to step in and explain this wasn't really happening. The second officer didn't speak. He didn't argue. He just lowered his gaze to the pavement, shoulders sagging, mouth tight, a man who knew he'd bet on the wrong moment and lost. The lieutenant moved quickly, giving instructions to his team. The rest of the officers looked between Dana and the two now being escorted to separate patrol cars. Some kept their distance. Others didn't bother hiding their judgment. Dana didn't say a word until both men were secured, until the chaos gave way to silence again. Then she turned. "Lieutenant," she said, calm but unwavering, "are you prepared to take my statement?" He straightened. "Yes, ma'am." "Good, I want both officers booked. Charges include unlawful detainment, use of excessive force, and brandishing a weapon during a nonviolent stop." He nodded but hesitated. Dana caught it. "And I want internal affairs notified. Tonight." "Yes, ma'am." She wasn't done. "I also want access to both of their disciplinary records. Past complaints, dash cam footage, body cam footage if any exists, and radio logs." The lieutenant rubbed a hand down his face, like the weight of it all was sinking in. "Understood." Dana stepped forward, her voice lowering just enough to cut deeper. "This is not a misunderstanding. This is not a training failure. This is a pattern, a cultural one." She glanced toward the man still standing at the side of the road, phone still recording, though the screen had dimmed slightly. "You good?" he called out, his voice steady now. He didn't lower the phone. Dana gave him a small nod. "Thanks to you." He shifted his weight, uncertain, like he wasn't sure if he should stay. "They do this," he said after a second, "all the time. Just not to people like you." The words hit her harder than expected, because they were true, and they hurt. "I know," she said softly. More units arrived. Not all of them knew who she was. Some moved slow, trying to piece together the chain of command. But she wasn't waiting anymore. She turned to the lieutenant again. "This isn't going away. I'll be filing an official report before noon. If anyone attempts to alter, delay, or bury this paperwork, you'll answer directly to the office of the Inspector General." He gave her a tight nod. "No one's burying anything." Dana studied his face, saw the fatigue, the calculation, and maybe just a flicker of resolve. "Then we understand each other," she said. She glanced at the patrol car where Hollins sat, hands cuffed, jaw locked, eyes still darting as if looking for a way out. He still didn't believe it would stick. He still thought the system would protect him. But Dana wasn't part of that system anymore. Not the silent part. She turned back toward the witness. "What's your name?" she asked. He lowered his phone for the first time. "Marcus." "Well, Marcus, I hope you keep that video safe." "I will." The wind picked up slightly, rustling through the cornfields beyond the shoulder. The flashing lights had started to dim, but the echo of them still lived on every face around her. This wasn't just about what happened tonight. It was about what always happened, when no one was there to see. But this time, someone had, and the story wasn't going to die in the dark. By dawn, the footage had hit every major news feed. Dana didn't need to scroll. She saw it unfold from her office, the walls still lit by the quiet blue of early morning. Her phone buzzed nonstop. Media requests, legal briefings, messages from officials who hadn't texted her in years. By noon, the Department of Justice had launched a formal investigation. Officer Hollins was stripped of his badge and booked on charges including assault with a deadly weapon and abuse of power. The second officer was placed on indefinite suspension pending review. The police department issued a carefully worded statement, neutral tone, no apology, the kind designed to sound like accountability while avoiding any. But it didn't matter. The world had already seen the truth. The truth didn't need a press release. Dana watched it all unfold with her hands steepled in front of her, calm, controlled, but not detached. This time it wasn't going to be buried in paperwork. A knock came at her office door. She didn't answer, just picked up her desk phone and dialed internal affairs. I need every case involving Officer Hollins from the last 10 years. I want names of those who filed complaints. I want to know which ones went unanswered. I want copies of the audio, video, transcripts, everything. Yes, Director. She hung up without another word. Because it wasn't just about her. It never had been. Her cell buzzed again. Unknown number. Normally she wouldn't answer. This time she did. Director Whitaker? A pause, then a familiar voice. This is Marcus. From that night. Dana leaned back in her chair. I just wanted to say, thank you. Most people wouldn't have done what you did. She exhaled, not with relief, but with weight. Most people don't have the power to, she said softly, then firmer. But I do. Another pause. Then his voice, quiet but sure. I hope you use it. She nodded, though he couldn't see it. I intend to. She ended the call and stared at the morning light bleeding across her desk. It was going to be a long day, but the right kind of long, because justice doesn't happen in silence. It happens when someone refuses to look away. And finally, someone had.